so much for being here today as a platform and community for women in law. I can't think of anyone better to have with us than someone who has been so inspiring for so many people, and also someone who's done amazing work and been consistent at it, which I think is so amazing. So thank you for being here. I wanted to start by straight away asking, as someone who's followed your journey, and I know that one thing that really stands out is how passionate you are. So I wanted to just start by asking you, what is it about the practice of law that drives you and that excites you the most?
So it's tough to say, really, in the sense that, I just love what I do, and I am a lawyer. So that sort of explains why I do what I do every day. But I think if you ask me what excites me about being a lawyer in particular is a couple of things. One is when I used to be a counsel and practicing in the High Court. Then at that stage, of course, the best thing that could happen was to win a case. The adrenaline was fantastic. And the more junior you were, the higher the adrenaline rush. Basically, convincing a judge about the merits of your case, briefing a senior properly, getting the facts right, getting the strategy right, getting the weak points of the other side properly into the brief, etc. Today, as an M&A lawyer, I think what is fun is when you close a transaction, which has been heavily negotiated, where all the nuances and overlays, not only of the commercial differences between the parties, but more so the regulatory nuances that come in to play, SEBI, IRDA, RBI, FEMA, etc. All that you need to sort of look at and tax. You have to look at in a very 360 holistic way, and then come to a final product, which has to be a win-win for both parties, because if it isn't, one won't sign. And so I think the fun part about it is that you have to put on your hat as if you were the other side. What would the other side want? What will the other side give up? Where will the other side not yield? And then take that strategy and thinking back to your client to try and stitch together the best deal. So interacting with people, interacting with regulators, just working with the team, that all remains exciting and fun for me even till today.
I think that's really interesting. That brings me to my next question about, how all of these things interplay. As a lawyer, you've always spoken about how being a good lawyer is lawyer plus other skills. So in today's current ecosystem, what do you think those, plus aspects are for lawyers today? What could they be to be a successful lawyer?
I think judgment calls, which take into account the business considerations. You can't advise in a vacuum. You need to know what are the business commercials that are driving the deal for both sides. And then coupled with that, when you come in to give your decision or your recommendation on a judgment call, you need to be completely briefed and know the domain of that particular subject matter well, so that you're not tripping up on what could be a regulatory issue. So that basically makes the whole khichdi, if you like, into one pot. And then that is how you really become a lawyer plus. Only being a lawyer would be to say, this clause is enforceable, or let's fight about this proviso. But if you want to get on with the deal, then you need to let your client feel that you have his commercial considerations in mind, and that you are willing to give a risk assessment of a go, no-go situation, such that he feels that you have become what is the ultimate aim of any lawyer, to become a trusted advisor.
Right. And you are someone who's, very respected in the corporate law space. And I wanted to know that from your perspective, do you think that corporate law in India has really evolved with the changing times? And what is your hope for the future in terms of corporate governance in India?
So certainly corporate law has evolved. If you look at it 20 years ago and today, there is a marked difference. And the key focus is governance, actually. Provisions of the New Companies Act, which put very high degree of fiduciary obligations on directors, including independent directors, on all the key management personnel, including the CFO. All these go to make them become gateways of good behavior. Even the auditors today, who have to sign off on balance sheets, take on personal liability if they haven't done enough diligence. And so to that extent, especially in listed companies, the regulator is very keen on providing an ecosystem where each one is accountable for good behavior. I think that is definitely one issue. So the ecosystem today is more rigorous, more accountable, a lot more reporting, and a lot more finger pointing, if you like, at bad behavior.
Right.
Plus, reputational damage is now seen as very worrisome, where it wasn't seen as so burdensome before.
I wanted to, move the conversation a bit to your journey, of course, and taking you back to, I know there was a time when you came back after your LL.M at Harvard. Sorry, before you came back, when you were working in New York at Baker McKinsey, and then you did move back to get married. And I wanted to ask you that as someone coming into an environment where you hadn't done any Indian law, and coming to an environment where there really were no female role models like people from my generation have, as in people like you and many other, women who are doing so well. So how did you really, what were your challenges and how did you really navigate that situation, considering you didn't have that many people to, look up to or pave the way before you?
It was difficult, for sure. I think, a bit daunting because you saw just the maleness all around you, if you like. And more importantly, the clients who you were representing in court were a bit uncertain as to whether you could deliver the goods being a woman. I think that was the biggest challenge, to basically get the confidence ultimately of the client that you were arguing for. But I think that slowly and surely, and it wasn't overnight at all, it was, just having to prove that you were as good, if not better than the rest. Definitely more hardworking, hopefully, than the rest. And as I always say, passionately paranoid, which was the only way to go if you were one of the very few women. So I think that what helped me was my confidence on my hard work and my ability to deliver a good product. And also the judges of the Bombay High Court were very encouraging and sympathetic and gave you a little bit of rope and allowed you to make some silly mistakes without putting you down. And so it was, I think, a great senior, Obed Chinoy, who held my hand. A lot of good solicitors who briefed me and had the confidence that I would work hard. And then ultimately, slowly, when you're a junior, you can't really argue your own matters. So the people who would recommend you would be the senior counsel. And so getting the recommendation of the senior counsel to say, okay, she works hard, she'll do a good job, give her a shot, and then just getting the visibility in time.
Right. So obviously a lot of support and mentorship is really crucial from what I understand.
Absolutely.
I also, you've been at the bar and you've also been at the heart of non-contentious work. And I think that women who do non-contentious work have gained a lot more visibility. And I know that even AZB, I believe, has almost 50% or more than 50% female partners. And I think that's amazing. But the bar is still, far behind in that regard. Why do you think that may be the case? And do you see that changing?
So we don't have 50%, unfortunately, but we have around 35% female partners, which is in many cases a great statistic. Yeah. I think the bar is more difficult for women because it is inherently more stressful, in the sense that when you're doing an M&A, you can say, okay, we'll come back with another draft later on. You have more time to think it through. When you're at the bar, and especially when you're arguing, you're on stage, right? There is no room to hide. There is no room most times to double up and think again. If you made a mistake, the 100 people in court have heard it. The judge could be forgiving or unforgiving. And therefore, the requirement to have 200% attention, capability, sharpness, wit, maneuverability, all takes its toll. And I think women are that much more conscientious and therefore that much more nervous, if you like. And so to keep reading for every matter the next day when it comes up, not just flip through it, be properly prepared, have your page numbers, paginate everything, flag everything, make sure nothing has changed since your last set of instructions. It just goes to time. It can wear you down, let's put it that way. And maybe men have a more nonchalant way of dealing with it. But for me personally, I always felt that every case was stressful because it needed to be won. And it needed to be won based on the granularity of the research and the hard work you had to put in night after night.
Right. And do you think that women ask enough for what they should be? Because I know that at your firm, you've spoken a lot about how you try to empower women and help them have a more flexible career graph, because that's really what will help them sustain in a firm. But do you think that women need to ask more for what they really need and what will help them?
Yeah, probably. I think so. I think they're getting better at it. There's a difference between asking for reasonable things and over asking. But I think that they should be articulating more what their concerns are, because only if you articulate can management solve it and react to it. If you just quietly keep it within and go away, then it's a lose-lose for both the woman and the firm.
And ma'am, other than being a great lawyer, you have your heading a firm of over 400 partners. So I think that your role in a lot of ways is an entrepreneur and a leader as much as a lawyer. And I was wondering if there are any leadership principles that you really abide by, or any values that you have sort of tried to keep consistent over these years.
So we have over 100 partners, over 450 lawyers. But I think that, we have to, I think not just me, but also all our named partners, Ajay and Behram, AZB. I think what we stand for, or what we want to stand for, is an honest partnership with a very fair and just-minded approach to outcomes, both within and externally. So what does that mean? That means that people who are your fellow partners and are the future of your firm must think this is an organization they want to belong to. They are proud to belong to, that it stands for certain things and does not yield on certain things. Very often, we face, not very often, but often enough, we face situations where the client says, I just want an opinion this way. And we try as much as we can, but when we can't, then we can't. And at that stage, the choice between the letterhead and the client becomes very clear. And of course, the letterhead wins. And so when this top-to-down approach is felt by everybody, that do what you think is right, argue and debate, but let's come to the right conclusion, not just client-specific, then there is a sense of knowing that your integrity as a professional will not be compromised by AZB. That is one. The next thing is, entrepreneurship encouraged within the firm. If you want to go out and do something specific, or you have a client that you're chasing, or there is a project that you think would be good for the firm, then that sort of openness of ideas is important. And every youngster should know that, not just the senior folks. And then, of course, the commitment to quality. There's no compromise on that. And when every lawyer knows that what is expected of him or her is the best, and that best is rewarded, in so many tangible and intangible ways, then you feel that here's a platform that will do good by you and will stand by you, provided you're willing to give that same level of commitment back. So I think integrity, quality, passion, collegiality, these are the values that will keep any law firm going. And I hope that we have them in AZB for a long time to come.
Right. I also wanted to ask you that if you could share with us, I think in your career, what's really interesting is how you've risen to the top, but also consistently stayed there, which I think is so hard to do. So I wanted to ask you, number one, what does it take to stay at the top, not just reach there? And number two, what would you consider, your milestones in your career if you had to think about it?
So I think staying at the top is a function of being paranoid, as I say. Never take anything for granted. And always being wanting to not only stay at the top, but keep increasing the lead, hopefully, between you and the next person who's number 2 and number 3. That again goes to the quality of the people who work for us, right? Work with us. And I think the defining differentiator is accessibility, responsiveness, quality, engaging. No client wants to know that you're busy all the time. They'll go to somebody else who isn't. No client wants, on the run advice. They want thoughtful advice. They have a lot of business decisions, which is hinging on the way you react. So reactions can't be flippant. They have to be purposive, thoughtful, and deeply thought through, basically. So I think that, that's the way we try and stay where we are. Don't want to take anything for granted. Never rest on laurels. Always making sure we're getting the best deal the next month, the next month, the next month. And again, trying to retain and attract talent as much as we can, which again goes to the whole point of we are nothing more than our people. So I think that, and if you ask me about milestones, I think obviously many milestones. One is being a young corporate associate in New York, loving Manhattan, learning. The next is coming back to a Dickensian court where everything was so different. Hardly any computers, no Westlaw, no research tools, everything to be done physically in the early 80s. And then, of course, the milestone of deciding to move over back to corporate law in India and trying to straddle both for a while, giving up on court, and then trying to make the most of the M&A landscape, which I had trained for nearly 5 years in New York. And then from a small boutique of 12 lawyers to grow it along with Ajay and Behram and my other partners to where we are today. That journey has been fantastic and very exhilarating and very satisfying.
Right. I just wrapping up, I wanted to ask you that when we're younger and there's always a hunger to grow. It's it could be to earn more money, it could be to rise higher, to get the best deals. At your stage, at the stage of your career, I'm wondering what it is that keeps you going, and what's the next best thing for you?
The next best thing is that all the next best deals. I'm a deal junkie, so I just love making sure that as far as possible, AZB lands the cutting edge deals, the nuanced ones, the first of its kind ones, the marquee transactions, marquee litigation, etc., etc. So that's, I think, part of my job, to make sure that, as you say, we try and keep our polar position. And that can only happen if we get the best work and then do the best work. So, and then I think just my nature. I've got the energy. I devote it largely to the firm. And I want to make sure that what we have built keeps building, which is a top-class quality institution as a service provider, and how to institutionalize that more and make sure that the foundation which is laid is carried on, far beyond Ajay, Behram, and myself.
So your hope is, of course, to leave back a legacy that's, just doesn't leave with you. It can continue and grow.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. This was so interesting and so insightful, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people and inspire a lot of people. So thank you so much.
Most welcome. Take care. All the best.